Hello guys and welcome to another video, and this one is Interlagos daily race C this week, and as you can see I am actually starting in third place in this one. So I'm using the McLaren, which isn't really the best start of this whole video, but yeah, I just wanted to mention this thing. Okay, this was a kind of a nice overtake, I would say. I got held up in a little bit of traffic, but the reason why I was held up in a little bit of traffic was that I was using the soft tires. And if you use the soft tires, you're just done. Mediums are mandatory. And I guess this video really didn't start in a very good style, because I finished this one in P10 because I forgot to change the tires. But then in the next race it was actually a lot better. So I tried picking up a couple of races that were in my opinion, that honestly we didn't have too much action going on, but they were interesting just because the different driving styles and different driving techniques with different cars. And as you can see here, we got a couple of Mazdas up in there, and I guess everyone except me in the top 5 was in a Mazda. So basically only I was in a Nissan GTR, which had slightly reduced BOP for now, but it was still, in my opinion, was still a very competitive car. And as you probably noticed, the title of this video is Tires Do Matter, and they do matter quite a lot, because in this race it was all about saving tires. Mazdas had kind of better tire wear over this whole stint, but the GTR was, I would say, kind of close to that. It wasn't the best car on tires, but it was still a very interesting car to drive, and in general it had very good tire wear. So you can see my driving style. I'm driving in 5th place. There was no point of pushing now, so as you can see in a couple of corners I'm really trying to save the tires, not really trail brake into the tight corners. Accelerating out of the corners was a little bit delayed. I'm exiting in, let's say, higher gears all the time instead of always second. It's third. It's always one gear that I wanted to use. I'm not using it at this moment, so I'm just trying to reduce the wheel spin, reduce the sliding, and eventually take care of the tires, because I know after about 10 laps the tires will start to matter quite a lot. And as you can see, I'm using brake and balance too, which for this car it seems to be like the best option. I think you can even use +1, but you will have to save the fronts a little bit more that way. But the whole point was taking care of the front tires, and you can see I'm braking a little bit before, and this was kind of very helpful. And after a couple of laps you can actually see that I'm starting to catch up Lewis, which had slight problems on the way out of there. I know this Mazda can be really twitchy on the way out, and it's one of the cars that I really wanted to avoid, but I actually did it. I actually drove this car later in my next race, but it was hard. It was really hard to follow these guys. They're all really quick, but the gap opened up. I went for it, turned one, kind of the best overtaking spot on the whole track, and I got myself into P4. Okay, I would say a nice looking pace so far, and I saw Gino making a little mistake up in the front. I mean, it wasn't much, but this Mazda can kick you, you're not even thinking about it, and all of a sudden it's like kicking the rear and you can just not get away with it. So you have to be very careful when you're driving it. So as I said before, Gino right in front of me, but I would say at the same time the two guys up there in the front, they are going side by side, and they're just trying to get that first place. But on top of that, I saw that Gino was actually struggling quite a lot, and I wanted to really take the most out of it and get myself into those podium spots. But here I'm in P4. I mean, we are not in a hurry, so you just need to be patient in this race. There is no point of pushing it early on, because later the tires will be hard to manage. So here I can see Gino going a little bit wider. I'm less than 2/10 behind him, and there is always a gap. I could have possibly tried to go on the inside, but it's honestly, now when I think about it, it's not that important, because something like this will eventually happen. So the guy in P2 got a 1-second penalty for cutting the track, and now instead of just fighting for that P3, compromising my chances of getting a podium because we will just lose time, and instead of that I am potentially looking for another place here. I mean, not potentially, because this is like the worst penalty zone ever. I mean, maybe on other tracks, maybe something could be worse than this, but it's absolutely the worst. So you got the straight line, you lose so much speed, and there is no way you're gonna get it back by the end of the straight. And with just a 1 second penalty, you're losing about 3 seconds in total. And he had no chance of defending that one. This needs to be fixed. I think the penalty zone should be in a different part of the track, but in this case, it got me that 3rd place, and all of a sudden, I'm very close to Gino, and Gino makes a mistake in that Mazda. Once again, it's very easy to make a mistake in Mazda, especially on those used tires. And now, my tire saving really did matter quite a lot, because I could have kind of pushed more, and didn't really save the tires in the beginning stages of this race, but now it's on the outside, but I know there is no way that I can make it on the outside. So I just tried deciding, I mean, I really didn't decide, it kind of turned out to be like that. So I got a little bit better exit now, a little bit more speed, and once again I can go for a move, and he's going defensive, and now those tires are really gonna show their full potential and full effect. So that tire saving that I did a little bit before really matters a lot now. So it's not the best, but it could have been a lot worse, trust me. So he didn't really think that I was gonna go down the inside, and just in the last moment I'm going for this move. There was a little bit of a push right there, not going to lie, but in the end, when I had to look at the replay, I think everything was clean. So in general, it was going on for a little bit longer than I expected. I kind of overshot my braking point, thought that he might have gone for that move on the inside, but looking at the replay once again, I see that I left him enough space. I got on the curb, there was a little touch, but I don't think it was anything, I would say, I don't think it was an accident. You guys decide about this, but I think it was fairly clean. It was just about enough to get that place, and I'm into P2. So 1 lap to go. I know he's got speed, I know he will try to do something, and that's exactly what he tried to do here. Really close. I'm trying to go in the middle of the track, and probably the best option that you have. Stay in the middle. He might go left, he might go right, but in the middle you always have a couple of options available. Or you might want to compromise your exit onto the straight, and eventually just try to defend that position as much as you can, of course. But here you can see the tires right now. I finished this one in P2. Slayers had a light penalty, I think it was half a second. He dropped down quite significantly, and I was even thinking about this might be a win, but it's P2. This was a race well done. And then after a while I decided, okay, it's actually time to try the Mazda, the car that everyone's using, and this one is me starting in P6. Honestly, I could have done a little bit better job in the qualifying, and I think I had the pace to start at least in the top 3. I mean, I know a lot of these guys spent a lot of time in the qualifying, so they deserve their place. I basically did maybe like 10 laps, and it was just about enough. So P6 is good with the time that I've spent doing this qualifying session. But once again, I can see Lewis in front of me, Slayers, and the usual guys. I mean, pretty much everyone as usual, and you probably know Damien from my last video, which got a lot of subscribers, and it was one of those videos when I said, okay, most of you guys that are watching this video are not subscribed to my channel, so if you think this is worth subscribing, you can subscribe. But also, thank you guys. I think it was about 60 subscribers on the last video, so I really appreciate that stuff. So here, once again, going back to the video, chasing Lewis now, and one of the, I would say, the most interesting things about this car that, you know, really surprised me a lot is that I started using TCS at 1. So this car, if you're using race and medium tires, it's all about using traction control, but just at 1. If you cannot handle the car, use it at 2. But it was actually quite surprising that this car was quicker while using TCS. And as you can see, once again, Lewis is close. Lewis is very close, and he goes slightly wide, and I just try to take this position, and he just didn't really get the exit speed. And I think he probably could have defended a little bit harder, but just realized that there was no point of doing that. We would just lose a lot of time, and I got myself into P5. And also, I think now one of the mistakes that I've done, and if you're driving this car, I would say put the braking balance at 0. I was thinking about putting it at 1, 2, 3, and I kind of stayed at 2, but then I realized later that my rear tires are really taken a huge hit. So if you're having a problem with the tires, put it to 0. I think even -1 in some cases could be working just about enough. But as I explained later, well, actually I explained it a little bit earlier, but we'll probably go later into the video. It was all about tires, and now once again the Italian loses control of the car. I go into the back end of Slayers, and he was very, very close now, but not exactly close to go for the move. So it was all about taking care of the tires, and you can actually see this was interesting for me. I mean, it's not much action going on about this race, but it was how much the TCS actually activates when you're using it at 1. So with the GTR, it's not much, it's not activating as much, but here, whenever I touch the curb, whenever I go slightly sideways, and especially like when you're going over the curb, you can see how the TCS is slightly activating, and it's giving me that little bit extra speed. You know, here, curb, not so much because I straighten up the car, but now this is kind of a mixture, like curb, acceleration, and then you got this little uphill section. You can see how little it's activating, but it means a lot. Trust me, it means quite a lot. It means from literally spinning out or staying on the track and saving tires. So you need to take care of the tires, and I was just behind Slayers here. He was really, really quick. I mean, I tried to give it everything, but he was just too quick at this point. But the TCS and learning this car was something new. I haven't really driven this car in GT7 that much, but it seems to be one of the best cars at the moment when it comes to tire wear and pure pace. And I don't even want to mention the straight line speed that this car has. So the McLaren was right behind me, and he had absolutely no chance of going for a move on the straight. There was absolutely no way. I could have just easily defended on the straight, and in the corners it's very hard to overtake. So if you're using something like a McLaren, I would say really take care of the tires, and you just want to get the best starting position. The tires are good, straight line speed isn't, but this car, I believe, could be the best possible option, and also use TCS1. And this was P4. So this really wasn't kind of a full action video like it was last week, but more like into the details of what you could use and what is actually useful in daily races. So this week, I guess it's the Mazda. You can use a couple of other cars, but I said before, it is hard. You need to use TCS. But guys, I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, you can always hit a like button. You might even want to subscribe, and that's pretty much about it. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.